mean? It's reckless to make 40-to-1 bets with other people's money.
Of course it is, but the point is that's the system now. And you can't blame the individual. The whole system is there. Look at your entire Congress.
I'm saying this is a crazy system with nuclear weapons. These people are crazy.
Of course, but think about the repeal of Glass-Steagall that occurred. All the worst damage that has been done to the United States and its people was the revoking of Glass-Steagall in the last phase of that process. And the repeal of Glass-Steagall opened the gates for all the hell which has burst out since that time. So you have to blame the people who orchestrated that and the people who defended the key bankers that were doing it. The audits of this came from London. But people weren't thinking about loyalty or anything else. They were thinking about money.
Sure, but that's my point, is they knew when they opened up the derivatives casino, fractional reserve banking to the moon, that it would cause a global implosion. What I'm saying is they are trying to ride this target, this bomb down to the target like Dr. Strangelove.
In some cases, yes, the leading ones, the British ones and the key people in Wall Street, the top people, Wall Street, the real Wall Street, Morgan, and that interest. They've been thieving, and people have loved them in Maine. Not loved them in the sense of physically loving them, but admiring them for their achievement and wishing that they could have the same thing. Our morality has been destroyed by the destruction of our characteristic American initiative, which is not a money issue. We're not monetarists, not honest Americans. We believe in a credit system. Our system was based on a credit system. And all this stuff is a violation of the credit system. The main thing we have to think about is the cure of this problem, rather than the complaint against it. My point is, we are in a situation of crisis where I believe that if more people would respond, we could, first of all of these Republican candidates for president, a joke, worse than a joke. Obama, an abomination. Then why are these abominations listed as the probable presidential candidates? That's where our problem lies.
Lyndon, we've got to go to break. Will you come back and take a couple more calls with us?
Sure.
Or a couple of calls? Great. And I do want to ask you, because I understand you disagree with some folks on solutions, if you're specifically talking about Ron Paul, because he's against the war, and he certainly is a man of principle, and he's predicted everything that's happening as well. We'll be right back. All right, briefly, because I want to jam in a few calls here. We're going to have to twist Lyndon's arm to go even further if we don't do this quickly. You're saying all the candidates are a joke. The other Republican candidates are pure establishment hacks who put out rhetoric but are bought and paid for. Look at Mitt Romney. I agree with you. But, you know, I know some people have attacked Ron Paul saying, well, if you cut everything will implode. And I understand that some of the banksters want to cut things once they've gotten their bankster welfare. My whole point is that it's the big banks that are getting the corporate welfare to begin with, and that's who Ron Paul says he'll cut it from. He also says he'll end all these wars and bring the troops home immediately. Briefly, what's your view of Ron Paul?
Well, Ron Paul I'm dealing with the real issue before me. The real issue is the United States cannot be saved from its own folly unless we immediately enact Glass-Steagall now, not down in the future, now, because we're on the point of the actual breakdown crisis of the entire United States economy. And if we do not get that Glass-Steagall renewal enacted now, this nation is finished economically.
Well, we can certainly see the depressions here. They've been telling us it's a great economy, but they admit that the numbers they're putting out are fake. And
the problem is a presidential candidate who does not propose an immediate Glass-Steagall enactment is not fit to be a presidential candidate, because the United States will cease to exist unless that change is made. That's not sufficient, but it's necessary. Without the Glass-Steagall Act, you cannot save this nation now. And if you're not pushing the Glass-Steagall Act now, you're not fit to be president. And the second thing, this will not be sufficient. Our intrinsic banking system now, even the non-speculative type, is so rotted out and so weakened, we do not have the adequate amount of credit needed to be organized to save this nation. Therefore, we need to make a change in the actual banking system to go to a true credit system, which was the original policy with the U.S. Constitution. If we go to a credit system, take one project, for example, take NWAPA. NWAPA will employ 4 million people, and it will start to do that the minute you start the project. The project is fully designed in principle. There's some details that would have to be worked out, but as designed by the company initially, back there in the 1960s. That policy, there are other policies, other programs similarly. We could restore this nation at an accelerating rate rapidly if we pass 2 laws. One, Glass-Steagall. That cleans up the banking system. Number 2, the resaved banking system will not be sufficient to save the nation. If you try to maintain a typical monetary system, you cannot save the United States. It may not die right away, but it won't recover. If we go to a credit system as well as a Glass-Steagall reform, we will immediately be able, with the cooperation of other nations which can induce to join with us in this, we can start a recovery of the United States, of a United States style recovery.
Lyndon, let me ask you this now. Can you do one more 10-minute segment with us?
Sure.
So we can finish up and take a few calls from people that are holding, and then after Lyndon leaves us, I'll get to the others that have been holding for a while, like Mark and others. But we're going to go to break here in a moment. But briefly, how do they plan on starting a war in Asia?
The plan is as follows. The Israelis were to start the war. The Israelis are supposed to start a provocation against Iran. In the meantime, in the middle of Asia, East Asia, or West Asia, you have Syria. Now, Syria is the most important nation in West Asia. It represents not the most capable military force in terms of quality of military force. I'm not talking about the extent of weapons and so on, but the quality, the troops. It also is tied to emotional...
Tell you what, start over when we come back quickly, because I want to go over all this in one piece, and then we'll take a few calls with Lyndon LaRouche. But we're looking at your view of the grand chessboard. But strategically, right there, it is at a key spot to control that whole area and the Mediterranean, the Russians' only Mediterranean port. The whole world is steaming towards a giant conflict. We'll continue back live on the other side with your phone calls and Lyndon LaRouche. LaRouchePack.com. There are limitless ways to go into business for you. All right, welcome, folks. Again, here we are on the Friday edition. I'm going to be back this Sunday live in studio 4 to 6 p.m. Central. And, of course, tonight on the Nightly News, we're talking to a constitutional lawyer, researcher, guy that wrote the big U.S. UN Biological Weapons Treaty, Dr. Francis Boyle. He's going to be on the Nightly News with me this evening. Paul Watson's doing the news portion. I'm doing the interview portion. And that's all at prisonplanet.tv. Lyndon LaRouche, who needs no introduction, is our guest for one more segment so we can get to some of your phone calls. And we appreciate him joining us. Sir, finishing up, starting over, the grand chessboard, why the U.S. is admitting it's preparing for a war right now in Asia. They're now talking about open war with Pakistan, who's got 100 nukes. I mean, this is a world war. Syria, proxy armies taking over Libya. It's all barreling forward. Why do the global financial interests centered in Wall Street, London, Frankfurt, and other areas, why are they wanting this? Why are they doing this?
Their principle is that they're not concerned about the amount of money in question or the amount of wealth per capita. They're concerned that they control it, whatever it is. Because they know if they control it, they can control the future. They don't care about the number of people who die or do not, or who live. They care about their faction being immortal, that their faction must reign as dominant over the planet forever. In the tradition of the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, the Crusader system, the new Venetian party, which is what this thing is. So therefore, they're concerned about, they really think in historical terms, but very bad historical terms. These empires always think in the terms of they're controlling the future destiny of mankind. And they don't care how many people they lose of their own forces, how many they themselves kill of their own forces. What they care about is the future. That is, they are principled, as most of our politicians are not principled. Most of our politicians are thinking about the amount of money they get for their pleasure. The British Empire is more moral by being immoral, is morally immoral.
Well, they're such incredibly vicious control freaks. They want to win. That's why they're into eugenics. They want to create an artificial habitat, control all human activity, and be God, basically.
Exactly. That's the idea of God in terms of pagan belief goes back to the things like the siege of Troy, where the question was, no matter how many people you kill, because you get to be the top dog, you can kill the opposition, the remaining opposition, which is what they did. They killed everybody except a few harmless people in Troy once they beat that racket. And that's the way the British think. That's their morality. They have a morality. The problem with our people, our corrupt people, is they have no morality. They have only personal greed, personal gratification. They don't give a damn about the future.
That's right. The globalists at the top, they've convinced us that everybody's thinking on a 6-month, and the ruling elite are only thinking about themselves, and it's everybody for themselves. But really, they've got all these minions to sell out for money they printed out of nothing. For the globalists, for the top controllers, they're not even about money. They're about total control, long-term strategic chessboard, and the end game is global holocaust, global eugenics, and then they reemerge with their whole Moonraker scenario. Incredible. So briefly, how do they plan on starting these wars? You're saying Syria and others and Iran. No, it's the kickoff going into Pakistan and then China?
No, it works differently. The plan basically is the British intend to destroy the United States by absorbing it, killing off most of the Americans, and a few things like that, But the intent is for them to do the impossible. At the time that the British system is entirely bankrupt, Rothschild is totally bankrupt. They're bankrupt. They want to save the system for the future. Therefore, they are religious, but they're on the devil's side. We're on the other side, except we don't have any supporters. We have many people who claim to be religious, but they don't act religious. They act on the basis of personal greed and satisfaction and their sexual lusts and things like that. So that, and here I am, with people like me. There are a few of us around. And I think in terms of immortality too. But I'm not on the Satan side. They are.
Well, that's right. Anybody who's truly awake and conscious and fulfilled is understanding that we all come and go. It is the species that matters, and it is the building up of humanity that is the great work. And for the global controllers, they want to take it all over, wreck everything, so nobody is independent, separate from their system, and they don't even offer mankind a place in their system with them running it. They don't like populations. They don't like people. They want us dead. It's like the James Bond movie when he says to Goldfinger, "Do you expect me to talk?" And he goes, "No, I expect you to die." They're not giving us quarter. And as crazy as all this looks, they're really moving us forward. Are things, and then we're going to calls, are things going well for them, Lyndon LaRouche?
No, they're not. The point is, if we have a few more people with a bit of guts, and we've got Russia and China are in other countries, like Korea, like Japan and so forth, in Asia, but other countries as well, and large movements in people in Europe who are on the opposite side or on the against that side. But so there is the potential resources, physical resources as well, to turn the situation around, to get rid of Obama, retire him into some zoo someplace where he'll be safe for the rest of his life, and get rid of this problem. We can do that. It's a good we can do in this time. The capability of doing it is there if the willingness is there. We can win. We can save this, not to grab power, but to save civilization. There are parts of civilization would like to grow and improve things. And we just remove this problem, and we could remove it. The removal of Obama from office while he's still president, before he starts a war, would be sufficient to open the gates for the salvation, at least in one sense, of civilization.
All right, let's go to...